Is James Hollingshead being overlooked for the 2021 Mr. Olympia? I certainly believe so. So I wanted to compare him to Iain Valliere because I believe that they will place fairly close to each other. I think that they both will end up somewhere in the fifth to eighth spot. And I believe that they will be close to each other. I believe that they will be compared. So let's see how they stack up against each other. Now I'm using the 2020 British Grand Prix version of James Hollingshead and the 2021 Arnold Classic version of Iain Valliere. And if you guys didn't know, they are fairly close to each other when it comes to height. James Hollingshead is just slightly taller. But one issue with this comparison is the camera angles. You guys will see that as we move along, but I tried my best, guys, so there's nothing I can do about that. So let's get moving. Now, in the front double biceps, I feel like Ian has improved quite a bit in this pose. I feel like his arms are better than what they used to be, and he's also wider and has better lats than James Hollingshead. He also has a slightly better V taper, and even though I feel like James Hollingshead gets the edge downstairs, it's close enough to where I don't feel like it's enough to make up the difference. So I will give Ian this pose. Moving on to the front lat spread. Again, guys, here the narrowness of James Hollingshead becomes a glaring weakness. I feel like, especially against Iain Valliere, who's fairly wide and has a great V taper, at least in this pose. So I feel like even though again, guys, James Hollingshead has a slight edge in the wheels, I feel like Ian Valliere just gets his pose. And another thing I would like to mention, guys, I know that they don't matter in the FP, but look at the calves, guys. Holy moly. James Hollingshead, he doesn't even have calves, guy. He has cows, as I believe Terminator would say. And when it comes to Ian Valliere, he just looks like he has toothpicks for calves. But again, guys, it's probably mostly genetic, so there's that. Ian Valliere still gets his pose. When it comes to the side, I believe that James Hollingshead has superior thickness. Aside from Ian having bigger arms, I believe that James Hollingshead is better overall. He is getting an edge downstairs. He has a better and thicker chest, in my opinion, and he also has better muscle separation. And overall, he just looks more grainy. Now, I don't know if it has something to do with the oil and the tan that they used, or the cameras that were used to take these photos, but overall, in this comparison, I feel like James Hollingshead looks a bit more grainy, and he looks to have better conditioning, even though I know that Iain Valliere had great conditioning at the 2021 Arnold Classic. But anyway, let's move along. Now, in the side triceps, again, I feel like overall James Hollingshead is thicker from the side. Now, Iain Valliere hits a great side triceps, and his physique overall looks great, especially his midsection. But I just feel like the pose is called a side triceps, and he's getting absolutely crushed in the triceps department. So I feel like you have to give this pose to James Hollingshead, and not even just the triceps, but I also feel like James Hollingshead just looks thicker overall. Um, so yeah, I would give this pose to James Hollingshead. But I feel like it's fairly close here. It's fairly close. When it comes to the back double biceps, I feel like the camera angle here plays quite a big role because downstairs, Ian will look bigger than Hollingshead, and when it comes to the back, Hollingshead will look more impressive. But still, guys, I think it's fairly obvious that James Hollingshead and Iain Valliere are fairly close when it comes to the downstairs department. Um, Probably Hollingshead gets an edge, especially due to the calves, and even in the hamstrings, I feel like he might be just a bit better. But when it comes to the back, I feel like Hollingshead is just more meaty and he shows more detail. I think that is fairly obvious when you look at their triceps. Hollingshead just has bigger triceps and they pop at you more. He has more of that 3D look. So I'd say that Hollingshead gets this pose. When it comes to the back lat spread, I feel like the only advantage that Iain has here is the width, and I don't think it's that obvious. So again, it's the same story here as the back double biceps. I feel like, yeah, Iain Valliere is a bit wider, but overall, Hollingshead just has a meatier back and it shows more detail. So I'd give Hollingshead this pose. When it comes to the abs and thigh, I'm just not a big fan of the way Iain Valliere hits his pose. Now I can understand why he would hit this pose in this way, because he probably has a fairly washed out midsection from the front, and it's probably lacking in detail. But anyway, I don't feel like guys should get away with hitting this pose in that way. And when it comes to the quads, I also feel like Hollingshead has a slight edge there. So overall, I'd give Hollingshead the edge here, even though he's structurally weaker. He just hits this pose a lot more textbook and he showcases his abs and thighs better. So that's the name of this pose, guys. So Hollingshead gets this pose. When it comes to the most muscular, again, I feel like Hollingshead gets this pose. I feel like Hollingshead is more muscular than Iain Valliere, even though Iain is wider. But I also feel like in this pose, it's fairly evident how they are both in great condition. But still, I believe that Iain, even though he's very wide and huge, he still needs to add more muscle to compete with this grainy freak known as James Hollingshead, reminiscent of Branch Warren. So I'd give a slight edge to James Hollingshead here, but I think that is not a blowout. It's fairly close. When you look at the arms, for example, Iain has an edge there, but overall, I'd give it to James Hollingshead. So, guys, the winner of this comparison is none other than James Hollingshead. Now, I believe that this guy will come in at like a freight train and surprise a lot of people. Now, I will make my 2021 Mr. Olympia prediction in the next coming days, and I'll see where I will place Mr. James Hollingshead. But I think that a lot of people will be shocked by him. He didn't compete at the last year's Olympia, and he hasn't competed since 2020 because he qualified right after the 2020 Mr. Olympia at the British Grand Prix. So a lot of people won't see this dude coming, but he will come, and he will come in full force. At least I believe so. That was it, guys. Let me know if you guys agree. Do you think that he will indeed place ahead of Iain Valliere at the 2021 Mr. Olympia like I do? Or do you think that I am maybe smoking crack? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys later.